Hello, Lions fans, and welcome to another Alumni Spotlight. Adam Williams here, and joining me today, head men's soccer coach Greg Munn and Mars Hill men's soccer alum Isaiah Schafer. Guys, how are we doing today?
Doing
Doing
well,
well.
doing well.
Doing very well.
Isaiah, welcome aboard the Alumni Spotlight. This is kind of a double dose, and I'm kind of cheating with my content here, having Greg on again. But Isaiah, let's we ask everyone that joins on here. The pandemic hits in March. Let's talk about how that's affected you. How's everything going on your end? And just kind of walk us through it.
Yeah, I'm healthy. It's definitely been a hit. I'm a little bit more tied in with the fitness community now, so that was definitely a community that was hit hard. So we're doing well now. We're doing well now. Everybody's slowly but surely kind of transitioning back into things. So yeah, I still feel blessed, healthy, so good to go.
So you mentioned you're part of the fitness community. Before we started recording, you said you're the director of training at numerous gyms. Let's talk about that process, kind of that initial, hey, we're shutting everything down, but kind of that reintegration and reopening. Let's talk about that process and how that's kind of affected you.
Ooh, yeah. It's been tough, right? It's been tough. We've been able to keep our doors open somewhat at our facilities, but it's definitely been a big hit. But now that people are starting to get a little bit more comfortable with things, and things are just starting to open back up a little bit more, we definitely see an influx in the population coming back out and getting back to working out really and taking care of themselves, which is a good thing. So definitely was slow for a few months there, but I definitely see people trickling back in and getting back to it.
Let's kind of rewind time here a little bit. Let's go back to, the beginning of your college career. As a junior and senior in high school, you're looking to continue your education and your athletic career. You were at the University of Sioux Falls for a couple of years, then decided to transfer to Mars Hill. I want to get your perspective on why you decided to transfer out this way. And then Greg, as an international player, let's talk about kind of the differences. And especially now as you're recruiting, let's talk about the differences for a, let's say, domestic player compared to an international player, no matter where they decide to play.
Awesome. You want me to start?
Yeah, that'll work.
You're the boss.
So for me, it was leaving the University of Sioux Falls. I knew I wanted to play at a higher level with soccer. So I knew I wanted to play Division II or Division I. And then I also, at the time, had a pretty interesting major of zoology, which I later changed that to biology. So that really kind of limited the list of schools that I could go to, having kind of that interesting major and then wanting to play at a higher level. So Mars Hill was on the short list and came and visited and, enjoyed the coach and again, was looking for that specific major. So Mars Hill ended up being the place that stuck and ended up staying there for 2 years.
And then Greg, on your aspect, when you're looking ahead to continue academically and athletically, how is it being, a native of Scotland and then finding yourself here in Madison County? How's that all transpire?
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's the same kind of approach I speak to international recruits about at the moment. Is that as you're looking at schools, as you're looking for that next opportunity, there's a number of different boxes you want to tick, right? And for me, a couple of big ones was the level, the program that I was going to be coming into, the school I was going to be coming into, the direction of the program, and the role I was going to play within that program was also very important to me. The coach was another piece to the puzzle, and then obviously the academics are very important there as well. And with Mars Hill having smaller class sizes and a lot more face-to-face interaction with your professors, plus having my major of physical education coaching, those were things that were going to be important to me as I made the decision to, leave Scotland and come to the US and arrive at Mars Hill, and obviously I've never looked back. And another big pull was just the way the roster was formed. Back then we had a number of Scottish guys in the squad. And we had a little bit more of a mature squad and a diverse squad, but obviously a really good group of guys. And that was one of the big reasons I came here, because I love the the guys that were coming in. I loved the coach. I loved the environment, and it all kind of lined up and it ticked all the boxes I was looking for. So, really, really fortunate to make the decision to come to Marseille, because it could have been a lot of different places, but it ended up being the best fit for me. And as we can see, I've never looked back since then.
We talked a little bit before we started recording, and you guys mentioned now about the roster being cultivated and how you guys liked what you saw in the way that it was being built. Greg, you mentioned again before we started recording that when Isaiah was brought in, that was a huge boost, getting that experience, getting that leadership to help those teams kind of get to that next level. In this coaching role now, you've also mentioned how you're trying to look to bring in more experience and leadership. Talk about how important that is to either get a transfer or maybe even a graduate student to come in and help bolster the squad.
Yeah, I think it's, obviously the on-field piece is very important to bring in the right type of players, and especially key players in key positions. But bringing in more mature players or more experienced players, or guys that maybe have played at the college level for a year or two, obviously then brings a maturity and an experience and a leadership to the locker room as well, which is a really big piece when you're trying to build a program and you're trying to create a culture and the image that you want to create. And I speak to the guys a lot right now, and I'm sure Isaiah will back me up on this, and I've got Kyle sitting here, that when I came into the program, I could see the direction we were trying to go with the recruiting, with the coach, with what the pieces we were trying to put together. I can see a lot of similarities right now with what we have, what we're bringing in, and the direction we're trying to go as a squad, and how that can hopefully allow us to be, more competitive and try and get back to the level we once were at. So, we've took a little bit of a different approach this year with recruiting. We have a very mature core within our squad at the moment going into this spring and going into the fall, and we're looking to double down on that and just add a couple of pieces that are going to bring experience and bring quality both on and off the field for us.
Let's jump back again to your undergrad days, more or less. Isaiah, you come from Sioux Falls out to Mars Hill. What were some similarities? What were kind of the bigger adjustments, more in terms of a cultural or a culture shock, I guess, if there was indeed one?
Not too much of one in terms of, if we're just talking about kind of the overall culture of Mars Hill, coming from my previous school, it was a smaller school there as well. So that was similar. But in terms of the soccer program, definitely a big culture shock in terms of just how competitive the boys were. And like kind of Coach Munn said, how everybody was on the same page and headed in the same direction in terms of really being the best team that we could be. The camaraderie that we had was unbelievable. And so that was felt from day one. And so I think I really attribute the success that we had those years that we were there to that culture that was kind of built. So, but in terms of the actual culture around the school, just with class sizes, like Coach Munn said, being smaller and the teachers being there, it was a great culture to really be able to also strive academically as well. So definitely great on both parts.
You guys talk about compete level and you talk about the camaraderie you had. Let's reminisce about those years. Very incredibly successful seasons you guys had. Let's talk about those. Maybe once you guys kind of get into training camp and preseason, and maybe when throughout the year you start thinking like, man, we can make a real run. Let's talk about some of those moments that you guys have about those couple seasons.
Yeah, we could spend a long time. We could spend a long time talking about that. But yeah, those were good days. Those were really good days. But I think what you'll find is that, Isaiah mentioned it. It wasn't just talent on the field. It was just the type of personalities you had in the locker room that, we were very much a team on and off the field. And anyone that was around during those times would back me up in saying that. We were always together as a team, and we had a lot of time and respect for each other, but we also competed really highly every single day. And that drove a competitive edge to everything that we done. And then ultimately, that then led to finding a lot of success as a team on the field and achieving a lot here at Mars Hill as a program, not just individually, but collectively as a group as well. We found a lot of success, and that kind of, allowed us to then find more success on top of that the years after that, just because of the culture that we created. And again, a big part of that was the coach, and he recruited very well. He recruited good pieces that could all kind of intertwine with each other, but at the same time he was very intense and very demanding, and wanted us to be the best version of ourselves and the best team we could be. So he pushed us to the limits at times, and but we fed off that, if that makes sense. We definitely fed off that energy. And we were a super competitive group, and we had each other's back, and we wanted to be successful together. And I think that allowed us to do that. And some of the memories we had from those couple of years were unbelievable, and we still reminisce on those, all the time.
Yeah, I think Coach Munn kind of hit all of that. The one that came to mind immediately when you said that was the 6 a.m. Wake up first day of training when we're out there running the fitness test. Nobody knew each other, but we're out there, and it's misty, and 5:45 in the morning or whatever it is, and we're all out there running this fitness test, killing ourselves. But you could just tell there was something different in terms of how much everybody wanted it. Everybody was there killing themselves and just ready to get after it. So from day one, I think everybody was excited and on the same page.
Isaiah, you mentioned that training camp. You're coming in, maybe some players know one another, but for the most part, still kind of gelling as a group overall. We've talked about chemistry a bit, but let's talk about you two, specifically. What were each of your first impressions of one another? And was there anything that watching them on the field that you kind of took and added to your game and helped elevate yourselves?
Well, first of all, I couldn't understand anything that this man said, along with, I think, everybody else. So that took a while, right? You would just kind of have to shake your head and nod and say yes, but realistically, we didn't have any idea what he was saying. But once we stepped it up on our linguistics, for me, Greg, he epitomized defined working hard, and someone that was going to be out there and not shy away from a tackle and be able to run up and down the line for 90 minutes. He was going to be the one to catch on the fitness test. He was going to be the guy that was going to help lead and yell when people needed to yell, and be there and to give advice when he needed to give advice. So definitely one of the leaders on the team from day one, and somebody that you could depend on in terms of he was always going to give 100% no matter what. So those were some big ones from him.
Yeah, I think, just building off that, Adam, we, coming in and it's the same as kind of this year a little bit, with a lot of new faces and, guys coming from different countries and guys coming from different parts of the US and different experiences. And, me and Isaiah obviously hit it off straight away, and, we were, very close off the field, and obviously led to a relationship and a dynamic on the field that was very strong, and we had each other's back. And I think that was the same way across the board. Isaiah mentioned the fitness test, and we just trained and played with such an intensity, and we just wanted so much success, and we wanted it together that that showed and just how we held ourselves. But me and Isaiah were very, very close off the field, and like I said, when we played on the field, we could complement each other. And Isaiah was an unbelievable workhorse, let's put it that way. That would, and that's one of the reasons I had Isaiah come and speak to our guys on Zoom over the summer, was because Isaiah was one of those guys that was going to spend an extra 20-25 minutes after practice working on areas of his game that were necessary. Isaiah was going to be a guy and doing his rehab or his prehab, before sessions, before games, after games, to make sure that he could play at the level, or his body could handle the level that was going to be demanded of him. So all those things considered, we just, it was a mature side. It was a good dynamic within the squad that we helped build a great relationship on and off the field. And I love my time playing with this guy, and anyone else that played with him knows the special abilities that he had, but he had to work for those. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of areas of Isaiah's game that that he worked on, and there's a lot of areas of my game that Isaiah helped me with. You know, we were very much in it together, and that made such a big difference when we went out there and stepped across the white line as a team.
Now, Isaiah, when you get that call from Greg and he says, "Hey, I want you to speak to my guys this summer," what's kind of the message, and kind of what's the feeling as well? Because like you said, first time you meet him, you have no idea what he's saying, and now he's asking you to give the message to his crew. If you don't mind sharing, maybe even just a little bit, like what was the message to the team during that call?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I didn't skip a beat, right? If Coach Munn is going to call me and ask me to do something, I just kind of ask when and where, right? So that's just our relationship. Like you said, we're very close on and off the field, and so whatever I could ever do to help the program or the boys out, I wouldn't hesitate to do it. So, but also it's an honor, you know. It's awesome that he would ask me to do such a thing, that he would hold me in that regard to speak to the boys about my journey and kind of what we had as a team at Mars Hill. So, you know, some of the big things that I spoke to the guys about were a lot of those things that kind of Coach Mudd said was the culture the importance of the culture that we were able to establish as a team, right? And how it took not just one player like myself or Coach Munn staying after to work on things. It was the entire team staying after and holding each other accountable to continue to grow as a program and as a team. And that's really how we became successful. So it was things like that. And but also the individual side, where like you have to hold yourself accountable at the end of the day as well, and you have to get in and take care of yourself physically and continue to grow as a player and as a student athlete. So speaking to the boys about that stuff, and they were actually awesome in terms of having notepads and asking questions and taking notes. So I was really pleased with the response I got from them, and that showed me that he does have a quality core group of guys with him, because that's what it takes. You get that quality core group and you start to build that culture. It's kind of that snowball effect that's going to continue to grow, and they're going to be successful because of it.
Now, kind of as we wrap up this interview, we talked about what brought you to Mars Hill. We talked about the team chemistry and kind of how you guys clicked once you guys were on campus, and then obviously talking to the guys now. Aside from advice for on the pitch, let's talk about any advice that you would give current or prospective students, either coming to Mars Hill or just embarking on their college journey in general.
Go ahead, Coach. You want to start?
Yeah, I mean, Isaiah mentioned a minute ago is, just the work rate. And, when he spoke to our guys, one of the big messages is that, you're going to get out of life what you put into it, right? And you got to work hard, and you got to maximize the opportunities that you have. So, when guys are looking at, college soccer, guys are looking at, where they're going to go to school and where they're going to try and play college soccer, the biggest thing is you've got to find the right fit for you. But you got to understand it's a journey, it's a process. It's not just going to happen straight away. It's not going to happen overnight. Some guys take a bit of time to adjust and get used to the level. And there's a little bit of a culture now where it's like, we just want instant success. We want instant gratification, where college soccer's hard. College soccer takes a lot of hours. It's a big commitment, and if you want to play college soccer, then you better be in it for the right reasons, and you got to trust the process a little bit. And we can use Isaiah as an example, and that's one of the big reasons I had him speak to the guys, is because Isaiah's journey from when we met at Mars Hill and our time playing together to obviously the relationship we have now. He's been through a lot, not just soccer, but in life as well, and he's continued to prevail, and he's continued to take on every obstacle that's been put in his way. And there's a reason Isaiah had a pro career. There's a reason Isaiah was able to go in and play at the professional level and go abroad to Europe and play at the professional level, and he's been so successful now because of that attitude and that mentality. And those are two big words that we speak to our guys about a lot every single day, is the attitude that they bring and then the mentality that they bring with it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Those are two huge ones that that I was going to bring up as well. But attitude and mentality, and just continuing to grow. Right. It's I think of it as kind of, especially when it comes to sports and soccer, you have these levels where, you go from playing, let's say, high school, and you're then going into the college levels, or college to pros, right? It doesn't stop once you make that leap and go across and make it to the next level, right? It's a continuing journey, just because you've worked so hard to get to that point, and now you've signed um, at Mars Hill, or you've been able to go from Mars Hill and make it and play for a professional team. It's a continuing process, right? So just always trying to grow um, as a person, right? And then also as an athlete, and continuing to learn and to apply yourself, and take, the positives and your previous experiences with you onto the next chapter, and just continuing to grow and build yourself and build those around you.
Well, Isaiah, first off, I want to say it's a pleasure meeting you. Greg spoke very highly of you before we started this meeting, so it's a pleasure being able to get you on here and do this spotlight. We'll definitely have to do a part two. We'll talk about maybe some road stories and game stories, or at least the ones that we can retell. But again, I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to do this, and Coach, thank you as well for helping set this up and taking the time as well. Any last words to the fans here?
No, just again, I just want to thank Isaiah for taking the time. He's our alumni is a huge part of this program. And Adam, I'm sure from doing the interviews and the podcasts and different things that you've been doing recently, I think you're starting to realise just how far the alumni stretch for Mars Hill. And how everything's kind of intertwined in so many different ways. So, for Isaiah's not going to be a stranger. Isaiah will be on campus again at some point in the near future, as we start to do alumni events and we get guys back for different things. And, the more alumni we can keep involved, and the more alumni that we can have as great resources for our guys in our program, the better. Because, I've said it over and over again that it's the people that make Mars Hill. There's no doubt about it. And we've had some really good people, through this program over the years that we want to make sure we keep connected. And Isaiah's a big part of that.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate the words, Coach, and I appreciate you guys having me on. It's definitely an honor to come out and be able to speak, speak about Mars Hill itself and the program. I think it's going in the right direction. I'm very excited to see what the future holds for this team. So yeah, I do appreciate you guys having me on for sure.
Again, thank you guys for taking the time, and we'll catch up here in a little bit. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks.
Thanks, Adam.